Stop eating breakfast the way your doctor told you to in 1995. If you're over 60 and you're still building your morning around cereal, toast, and orange juice, you are quietly starving the one tissue that determines whether you walk into your kitchen at 90 or get wheeled into one. I'm Dr. Daniel Hayes. I know how that sounds, but let's start with something that should make you sit up a little straighter in your chair. Researchers who study the longest living populations on Earth, places like Okinawa, Japan, where the concentration of people living past 100 is many times higher than in most Western countries, have spent decades trying to figure out why. And in summaries of this research, one pattern shows up again and again. It's not exotic superfoods. It's not supplements. It's a small, consistent list of ordinary foods eaten almost every single day in a very particular way. In these accounts, the centenarians who stayed sharp, mobile, and independent into their late 90s weren't eating differently because they were rich or had access to anything special. They were eating differently because decades ago someone taught them which foods protect aging muscle, aging brain tissue, and aging joints, and which foods quietly accelerate the decline we've all been told is just part of getting old. It isn't. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why, in plain language with no jargon left unexplained. Before we go further, I want to ask you something, because I genuinely read the comments on these videos, every single one. Tell me your age right now, and tell me one thing, just one, that you wish you could still do as easily as you did it 10 years ago. Carrying groceries up the stairs without stopping. Getting up off the floor without using your hands. Walking the dog around the block without your knees complaining the whole way. Whatever it is, put it in the comments. I want to know who's watching this and what you're fighting for, because that's going to make this list mean something instead of just being another video you forget by tomorrow. Now, let's talk about the one item on this list that surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. It sits near the very top. And when I tell you what it is, your first reaction is probably going to be, wait, that's allowed? Stick with me, because we're going to build up to it the right way, starting from the foundation and working up to the food that, in longevity research, shows up most consistently in the daily diets of people who are still gardening, still climbing stairs, and still living alone, well into their 90s. The aging problem nobody explains properly. After about age 75, physiological data suggests the body can lose roughly a third of its natural ability to build new muscle protein from a normal-sized meal. Scientists call this anabolic resistance. Let me explain what that actually means. Anabolic just means building. Resistance here means your body has gotten stubborn about it. So, anabolic resistance simply means the same piece of chicken or fish that would have built solid muscle for you at 40 now barely registers for your body at 75. Your muscle building machinery hasn't disappeared. It's just become incredibly inefficient, like trying to start a campfire with damp wood. You need more spark, more heat, more of the right fuel delivered in the right way to get the same result you used to get effortlessly. This is the single biggest reason seniors lose strength, lose balance, and eventually lose independence. Not because muscle loss is mysterious, but because most people are feeding 75-year-old bodies the way you'd feed a 35-year-old body and wondering why nothing happens. So, let's count down the foods that, in research summaries on longevity populations, repeatedly show up as daily staples among the people who are still strong, sharp, and steady on their feet decades past when their peers needed a cane. The longevity foods. 6. Fermented soy. Specifically, something like natto or miso. I know fermented soybeans don't sound like the secret to eternal youth, but here's why it matters for an aging body. Inflammation is the slow-burning fire underneath almost every disease of old age, heart disease, joint pain, even cognitive decline. Think of chronic inflammation like a smoke detector stuck beeping at low battery all day, every day for years. It's not a fire alarm, it's a constant, low-grade irritation that slowly damages everything around it. Fermented soy contains compounds that, in population studies, are associated with lower markers of this chronic inflammation. For preparation, a small bowl of miso soup with your evening meal or a tablespoon of natto over rice a few times a week is enough. You don't need much because fermentation has already broken the food down into something your gut can use easily. Synergy tip: pair fermented soy with a source of vitamin K, like leafy greens, because together they support how calcium gets deposited into bone rather than into your arteries, exactly where you don't want it. 5. Oily fish, mackerel, sardines, salmon. This one isn't surprising, but the reason it matters for aging might be. Your mitochondria, the tiny structures inside every one of your cells that act like power plants, converting food into usable energy, become less efficient and fewer in number as we age, especially in muscle tissue. This is part of why a 75-year-old feels more tired doing the same task that took no effort at 60. The omega-3 fats in oily fish help maintain the membranes around these mitochondria, keeping the engine rooms running cleaner and longer. For practical purposes, 2 to 3 servings a week, grilled, baked, or canned in water, works fine. Synergy tip: eat your fish with something fermented or fibrous, like pickled vegetables. The gut bacteria that thrive on fiber help your body absorb and use those omega-3 fats rather than letting them pass through unused. 4. Seaweed. Specifically, something like wakame or kombu. Seaweed is almost comically underrated outside Japan. The reason it matters for an aging body comes down to the thyroid and micronutrients that become harder to get enough of as appetite naturally shrinks with age. Many seniors eat less overall, and survey data suggests appetite can decline significantly after 70, often without people noticing. Nutritionally, seaweed is extraordinarily dense in minerals like iodine and magnesium for very few calories. Even a small daily amount punches well above its weight. A simple wakame soup or a few strips of dried seaweed in a salad is enough. Synergy tip: pair seaweed with a small amount of healthy fat, like a drizzle of sesame oil, because several of its beneficial compounds are fat soluble. They need fat to be properly absorbed. 3. Rice, but eaten the right way. This might sound strange because rice has been demonized for years as empty carbs. Here's the nuance nobody explains. The issue was never rice itself. It was eating refined carbohydrates without enough protein or fiber alongside them, which causes a sharp spike and crash in blood sugar. Think of your blood sugar like the tide. You want it rising and falling gently, not slamming up and crashing down like a wave hitting a seawall. In longevity research, populations who eat rice daily and remain remarkably healthy into old age are almost never eating rice alone. They eat modest portions alongside fish, vegetables, and fermented foods, which slows that sugar spike dramatically. For aging bodies, this matters because repeated blood sugar spikes appear to accelerate glycation. sugar molecules sticking to proteins in your body and making them stiff and less functional, like sugar caramelizing on a pan. Over decades, this process contributes to stiffer blood vessels and less elastic skin and joints. The fix: eat a modest portion of rice, always alongside protein and vegetables, never alone. Synergy. Tip: a splash of rice vinegar, traditionally used in sushi rice, appears to blunt the blood sugar spike from rice by adding acidity to the meal. 2. Eggs. Yes, whole eggs, yolk included. For decades, seniors were told to avoid egg yolks because of cholesterol fears. Here's why that advice may have actively worked against healthy aging. Eggs contain one of the most complete and easily absorbed protein profiles available in any food, along with choline, a nutrient your brain uses to maintain signaling between brain cells. As we age, choline becomes harder to get in sufficient amounts from a typical diet, right at the moment your brain needs it most to protect memory and clarity. And critically, the cholesterol fear largely ignored a basic fact. For most people, dietary cholesterol from food has a far smaller effect on blood cholesterol than once believed, because your liver adjusts its own production. Avoiding eggs for decades may have meant avoiding one of the most efficient protein sources available, right when an aging body needs efficient protein the most. Remember, your muscle-building machinery has become inefficient, so you need denser, higher quality protein to get the same result. Practical tip: 1 to 2 whole eggs a day, boiled, poached, or soft scramble, is a reasonable target for most healthy older adults, though anyone with specific heart conditions should discuss this with their doctor. Synergy. Tip: eat your eggs with vegetables cooked in a little olive oil. The fat helps you absorb the fat-soluble vitamins concentrated in the yolk, like vitamin D, which most seniors are quietly low in. 1. Vegetable and tofu soup, the single food that shows up more consistently than almost anything else in the daily diets of people who remain independent into their late 90s and beyond. It's not exotic, it's not expensive. It's a daily bowl of vegetable and tofu soup built around seasonal vegetables, soft tofu, and a light broth eaten with nearly every meal. Here's why this simple dish does more for an aging body than almost anything else on this list. Soft tofu is extraordinarily easy to digest and absorb, which matters because digestive efficiency declines with age. Stomach acid production can drop significantly by the time someone reaches their 70s, making protein from tougher meats harder to break down. Soft tofu sidesteps that problem. The vegetables in the soup provide fiber and micronutrients in a form that's gentle on aging digestion while feeding the beneficial bacteria in your gut. And your gut bacteria are closely tied to how well your immune system functions as you age. Soup, eaten warm and slowly, naturally hydrates you. Many seniors are mildly chronically dehydrated without realizing it because the thirst signal weakens with age. You simply don't feel as thirsty at 75 as you did at 35, even when your body needs water just as much. A daily bowl of soup quietly solves dehydration without you having to remember to drink 8 glasses of water. Practical preparation. Simmer a light broth. Add soft tofu, cut into cubes near the end so it doesn't break apart, and include seasonal vegetables like daikon radish, carrots, leafy greens, or mushrooms. Synergy tip: add a small amount of fermented miso to the broth right at the very end, off the heat. High heat destroys some of the beneficial live cultures in miso, so stirring it in once the soup has stopped boiling preserves more of its benefit. The real lesson. None of this works as a one-time fix. None of it works if you eat perfectly for 3 days and then go back to old habits. What actually changes the trajectory of aging is unglamorous daily repetition. The same handful of foods, prepared simply, eaten consistently for years. Getting older does not have to mean giving up your independence. It does not have to mean accepting stiffness, fatigue, and frailty as your turn. The body you have right now, at 60, 70, 80, or beyond, is still capable of building muscle, still capable of healing, still capable of getting stronger. It just needs to be asked the right way, with the right fuel, consistently. Researchers studying older adults who begin new habits, whether it's strength training or improved nutrition, find meaningful improvements in strength and function, even when changes begin late in life. Your future independence, the ability to get up off the floor on your own, to carry your own groceries, to play with your grandchildren on the ground, and get back up without help, is still being written. One daily meal at a time. If this resonated with you, which food on this list surprised you the most? And which one are you going to add to your plate this week? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one.